probably some people who are here had already some contact with us. So I'm Daniel Santos. I work as a business executive, and I work as a business and life coach as well. So I have several passions in my life. One of the passions has been around ontology, around human development, around positive psychology. And in this journey towards getting to know more about myself, trying to understand more about my own challenges as a person, as a human being, I met Joe. I met Joe and I met other wonderful human beings in a course, in a program that we did together. It's more than a year now. It's unbelievable how time flies. But we did a program together in Boulder, Colorado, around ontological coaching. So, yeah, almost 2 years, right? Yeah. Yeah, unbelievable. So we got to know each other, and we continue to have our journeys into our coaching careers and human development activities with different people. So I want you, please, Joe, introduce yourself, and we can also get started to the topic of tonight's
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Daniel. And it's always a pleasure seeing your face and talking to you. We always have had good conversations, so I'm looking forward to this. As Daniel said, my name is Joseph DiRoma, and my position currently is the head of the Successful Male for North America, which is a comprehensive men's personal development program. Helping men achieve, greatness, really, in order for them to become the best versions of themselves possible, and by doing that, they become successful and confident. We have a business side of that, coaching program involved in that, as well as a community with meetups and live events once the country opens back up, put a hold on all that. But we know that men right now are definitely wanting to have a community where they can go and hang out with other men looking to become successful and ambitious and looking to better themselves, and a place where gentlemen can hang out, right? And not have a fear of being called out by men that are insecure within their own skin and feel the propensity to bully and talk down to others. We're all about collaboration and lifting each other up, so that's what I'm doing right now. We have a podcast, we have a magazine, and you guys can find all that stuff in my bio. The link's right in there.
Perfect. And Joe, as I was telling you the other day, right, I got really excited with the topics you are working with, because I've seen this in my practice as a coach as well, and working with men, with women, different age, different demographics, different people from all over the world. But the things that come to us are very similar, right? In terms of the challenges. Is it so many times the challenge with my career? I want to do a career transition, but I don't know. Or is it the challenge about I need to take care of myself and I don't know how to take care of myself? How can I develop my dignity, right? How can I learn the art of saying no? But in the mix of all of that, the great art of saying no, in the mix of all of that, I got so curious about the work you do, because I think you work with two big things, two big topics that we have so many narratives about this, right? Man itself, it's already a big topic, and all the stories that we have about ourselves as a man, all the stories that other people, sometimes women, have about man, what is to be a man, and success, right? All the stories we have about success. Is it good? Is it bad? And what do you usually think about successful people? What's the image that the media usually sells us about successful people? So I wanted to hear more about that from your perspective, how the people who come to you, what do they bring related to those two big topics, like being a man and having success? What's their initial narratives about that?
I think, well, let's start with the success thing first, and then we can dive into the man stuff. From my experience, we have a set amount of core beliefs that have been implanted into our mind from generational context from our parents, cultural context from society, as well as coaches teaching onto our subconscious these beliefs of what success should look like. Should, right? That magic word, should. So in reality, success is very subjective, right? And it's very important. One of the biggest things that I see is that no one defines what their life would look like if it was a successful life. You know, they automatically think that it's financial and material success like society portrays. Would you say Mother Teresa lived a successful life? Scraping for food on the streets of Calcutta? She's one of the most glorified people on the entire planet, ever. Her name will live on forever. Would you say she lived a successful life? She had nothing materially. No financial success, zero. But yet she was able to impact the world because she lived a purposeful, inspired existence that impacted people through love. I'm not saying at all that we should be Mother Teresa. I'm not even saying that you shouldn't go get your dream car if you want it. All I'm saying is that in itself will never fulfill the intrinsic fulfillment that you desire from being so happy to get out of bed that you don't even need an alarm clock. So it's very different, right? But the thing is that until you define that for your life, what your definition of success, sit with yourself and say, this is what I want for my life, not what my parents think I should do. We know how that goes, you know, not what society deems I should do, not what my third grade guidance counselor thinks I should do. What do I want? What do I want for my life? You know, and write it down. Get it out of there, man. Get it out of there. Put it on paper, make it reality. So that's number one, right? Because you can't hit a target you can't see. Okay. Number two, I mean, what it means to be man, right? Men are very confused right now. And I brought some statistics to read for everyone because it was very shocking to me 2 years ago when I started getting into this work. And I think some people will be surprised and why a men's movement right now is so needed, because a lot of people are like, what, men's movement? I mean, they're like running the world right now. Yeah, and how's it going right now? How's everything going right now? When I look around, it's not a bunch of women messing everything up. So yeah, there's some men in the world that need to work on themselves right now. But listen to these statistics right now. 85% of homeless are men. 77% of suicides are men. That's a 43% increase since 1977. 70% of murder victims are men. 92% of deaths in the workplace are men. 97% of war deaths are men. 14% of men get custody after divorce. 14%. I mean, I know there's a lot of deadbeat dads out there, but not that many. That's not even close to 50%. Our sperm count is down 60% since the 1970s. 90% of prison inmates are males. And right now we're falling behind in education, discipline, and even financially. You know? And I think it's very clear that that if you and I and a lot of other men that are in the world, if we lift up other men, that in no means that we're doing that to step on others to lift each other up. It's simply saying, hey, like, there's a problem right now. and we really need to do something about it.
Mm.
And it's the interesting thing as well is that a lot of times when I talk to women and I tell them what we're doing as far as looking to make men more passionate, high charactered, ambitious, know what they want, and have them be in a place where they're have unshakable confidence and they're decisive. That's what women want. You know what I mean? Like a man who's more emotionally intelligent, you know, like is open to listening and, you know, all things like, so it's like, it's actually what women want. So like, if you're on here right now and you're a single guy, like you should probably be doing this shit to work on yourself because it's what women want in the first place. Right. So, and especially when I talk to mothers, oh, you know, like,
Yeah.
of course I want my son to be the best version of himself. I don't want him to be in those statistics right there. So that's where we're at, man.
Exactly. So this is, yeah, and this is when you bring those statistics. I mean, I'm shocked. I'm shocked, but in a way, when I reflect back to the things I see around myself, like if you go to a big city where you have lots of homeless people, like New York City or Philadelphia, both cities close to where I live, it's true. It's true. Majority, the immense majority are men. And I think very important what you're bringing, because we are not here saying, look, we need to take care of men and we should not take care of women. I mean, we should take care of everybody. Everybody is important. Everybody matters, right? But I think man, it's a population that historically, due to the cultural discourse, and I wanted to get your perspective on that. What do you hear from your customers on that? We have this narrative, we have this idea that, look, other people don't need to
Mm.
take care of me. I know how to take care of myself. And I'm here to take care of others, right? That's my role as a man. So if I ask help, if I say, look, I have a problem, I don't know how to solve it, can you help me? That's a sign of weakness. So I think this type of narrative created a society where, yes, we are looking at women, we are looking at minorities, we are trying to help. There's still a lot to be done, but what about the man? What about all those statistics that you just mentioned, right?
Yeah. And, you know, exactly what you said, taking on that role of the provider, the patriarch of the home, um, you know, and you have men that, well, now in a much different society where um, women have a lot of opportunity to earn a great living, run the household, and then it's like I'm taking a back seat, and most men don't know how to handle that because the woman's business ends up being the one that's exploding, and then they're the breadwinner, and they're looking around like, okay, so what am I supposed to do, right? Like, and one of the big things that we talk about is, you know, powerful women scare weak men, you know, because if the only thing that I have in my life is to be the breadwinner, and I define my value as a human being based upon that, that's a huge expectation that's
Mm-hmm.
going to just crumble and fall. And I would say that
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole thing about asking for help, like you said, that's one of the number one issues that we see with men. And that's why right now research has shown that almost 70% of personal development consumption is by women. They are kicking
Mm-hmm.
our ass at personal development and investing in themselves because you know
Mm-hmm.
they don't have this feeling inside of them that if I work on myself and put up my hand and say I don't know or that I need some help, then I'm weak. They don't have that wired in them like we do. But I think you and I both know that it's very deeply ingrained in us, you know, from a very young age, that 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 belief, that knowing that I have to know everything, right? Like we learned in our school. And it's even more prevalent in men, you know. But if you look at Eastern ontology, enlightenment is actually only achieved through unknowing. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so, but I think that with men, the biggest thing is that sometimes we forget that we're human, and the basis for humanity in itself is imperfection. You know, and I often tell people that the most courageous thing I've ever done in my whole life was put up my hand and ask for help. You know, it was
Yeah.
saying, hey, you know, I don't have all this figured out. I'm going to need some help here. And that ultimately was the catalyst to change my entire life from the way that I was living, you know, and that only happens when the pain exceeds the fear of change.
Yeah. And that's so beautiful what you just said. So beautiful. Like we are all human beings, right? And a question that I've been asking myself, and I ask many of my customers, my clients, is look, your value, what if your value as a human being is just because you are who you are? What if your value does not depend on your job, how much money you make, if you are working for a corporate company or not? What if your value really matters because you are a human being and you are here in this world and you have a lot of light, you have a lot of things to offer, and you have, yes, darkness and things to
Sure.
work on, right? But it's, I feel that's a process, right? We, as you just said, we just need to unlearn those narratives to be able to learn the new story,
Yeah.
right? The story of the resilience and the vulnerability. And how do you see this connected? If you want to, if you can give us a little bit of the overview, very interesting what I found the other day. You told me I think you mentioned 3 or 4 different crises or 3 or 4 different topics that your customers bring
Yeah,
to you.
absolutely. Um, I'll go to that in 1 second. I wanted to just have one final point on what we were talking about as far as asking for help. And it's the number one argument that I have for men, because men, oh, I'm not afraid. No, I don't need any help, right? But we do place a strong emphasis on courage. Now, you and I both went through and did a large amount of work when we did the linguistic deconstructions of emotions and understanding what those emotions are at a foundational level. And courage in itself is not available to us without fear, right? So you can never draw on courage unless there's fear present. So you can never be a courageous man like you want to be unless there's no fear. So that's my argument. If you're going to be a courageous man, then you're going to put up in your hand and say, you know what? Hey, I don't have it all figured out. I am a little bit afraid of what's going to happen to me if I don't take some action, but I'm going to have the courage to love myself enough and take action in my own development to become better. So that's the argument that I have for men. If you want to be courageous, because you can only do that in the presence of fear, not in the absence of it. And then the second point, like you were saying, we found that there's 4 crises right now plaguing med. The number one crisis is relationships. For some reason, the whole woman thing just seems to baffle men. They don't know how to be in a healthy relationship. They don't know how to attract women. They, have no idea how to handle themselves emotionally. So it's, a consistent fight or flight all the time. And we just consistently hear that men are just lost and very confused and a lot of pain when it comes to relationships, we know a lot of that stems from maybe their own father not being around either, a lot of this stems from that. The second one is the career crisis. I'm sure that in your position, you've seen this a lot, where People just don't know why they're not advancing in their career, or they don't know why they're in the position that they're in, because they're not using their gifts, and they wonder why they're so miserable. I worked at a corporate office all last year, and like, I loved Mondays, and people, it like drove people insane. Like, you get on the elevator, and there's all different companies within that office building where you're in. So you see all kinds of people, and I'm just like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, it's like they literally hate their life, and
You,
it's like,
you start saying like Happy Monday instead
oh
of
yeah,
Happy Friday.
Motivation Mondays, TGIM, thank God it's Monday, all sorts of stuff, let's kick the week off, and I was just so grateful to be there. And it's one of those things where people, it's like, if you hate your job that much, like, what are you doing, right? But like I said before, so many men, they attach their value as a human being to their job title. And that's just not real. It's a
Mm.
job. It's not your work. Your work is what your gift is to the world. And your job is your job. That's what you do to earn an income. The magic happens though when you align your job and your work. The third thing that we found is financial crisis. We're living in the most abundant times that the world has ever seen, in the most abundant country on the planet ever. And people are still living paycheck to paycheck. Um, that's baffling, right? And it stems from generational context of a scarcity mindset. We're not taught at all in education to manage money. We're taught how to be obedient workers and good consumers. Go spend all that money that you make at a company you work for, rather than, hey, let's help you discover your gifts and really learn how to manage a business and manage your money. So again, some of this is the fault of our own society. Some of it is the fault of people themselves, not waking up to the fact that maybe you should stop trying to keep up with the Joneses and stop trying to keep up with all your people on Instagram and just live your life, you know?
Mm.
Um, so
Mhm.
I said, what I say, relationships, career, finances, and the last one is, wow, it just fell out of my head.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll have to move on because I can't think of it. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
the not career. We already said that. Anyways, let's go on to something else. It will surface for me.
yeah, yeah. It will surface. An interesting perspective that I've seen, right, related to career is I've seen many men coming to me. I think women as well, but more men because of the social, the cultural narrative that I've seen. It's very strong, I would say, not only here in the United States, also in Brazil. I would say in the Western society, right? So I have had clients in Europe that bring this type of narrative, which is, look, I hate my job. I want to do a
Yeah,
career transition. I want to do something else, but I can't because I am the provider, right? I need to pay the bills. I am the one that pays the bills. I am the one that needs to carry others on my shoulder. And I have seen these guys over and over and over again, regardless if it's a client, a Spanish client, or an Argentinian client, or an American client, regardless of the age. And as I said so many times, also regardless of the gender, right? I've seen that with women as well, but more frequent with men. Uh, how do you see that in your practice, and what in your work with the men? What has been like the shifting moment for them to realize, yay, it's possible to solve this career
that's a
crisis,
great
right?
question. And I would say it goes back to exactly what we were talking about, and that is limiting beliefs. Everything stems from that. everything. Like James Allen said in his book, As a Man Thinketh, you know, external conditions are always in perfect harmony with internal conditions, right? Always. You know, our inner thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and thoughts are what are always in perfect harmony with what's going on outside. And the reality is that most people just don't understand how the mind works, right? And they think that if I just take a different action, I'm going to get a different result. And you may for some time, right? But it's not going to be anything that promotes lasting change. How the mind works is you have paradigms or patterns, right? And your paradigms affect thoughts. Thoughts affect beliefs. Beliefs affect emotions, right? Emotions generate behaviors. Behaviors then affect actions, and then actions affect results. You can't then say, I'm going to change my actions and get different results and think that thinking has changed. I have to, right? Because the subconscious mind works the same as like it does for breathing, or as it does for beating your heart. It's going to push solutions to your conscious mind to bring it out of pain. That's the whole point. So that's why people consistently choose familiarity and comfort over discomfort and growth. It's not comfortable to go find a new job. It's not comfortable for me to go, you know, chase my passion, you know? And you get into this space where I'm stuck. I don't want to be in this space, right? Because it's not really what I want to be doing, but I have all the pressures of my family and providing for them. And then over here, I have the dangers of uncertainty and, you know, and it's our job as coaches, you know, to unravel within them, because everything, all the answers that they need for life are buried inside of them. We're not giving people the answers to their life. Like I said before, you know, if you're fully content and happy with, you know, working for someone else, so be it. And that's what you've always wanted to do. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not what we're seeing a lot of. We're not, you know. Shit, I had plenty of people working for me at the restaurant as bartenders that had 4-year degrees. They got it in, I don't know, psychology or, you know, criminal justice or something. And they're not even using it. It's like they just went away for 4 years, partied and got good grades, and like now they're just doing whatever, you know, because they're very confused. They don't know what they want, you know. So I think a lot of times people just they choose convenience, you know, they choose convenience.
Yeah.
And you know what surfaced for me too is the last health crisis for men that's plaguing men. The health crisis, you know, they're not taking care of them, you know, they focus on their mental health or their spiritual health at all. You know, maybe all they do is say, you know what, as long as I have a ripped, shredded body, then I have it all. And it's like, nope, that's not multidimensional, man. That's not healthy relationships with your wife and kids. That's not a career you want to be in. That's not financial, financial wealth and building wealth to legal legacy for your family, impact the world. Great, you have a wonderful body. Good for you. Well, that means that you somehow have some sort of discipline that if you applied to other domains of your life. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys, two things here. Please write your comments and questions on the comment box. Okay, so we can also have a dialogue here, and let me know If at least for me, Joe, your image, your sound is breaking up a little bit. Not sure if it's my internet connection. Let me know, guys, right here on the chat box as well, if it's my internet connection or it's maybe
Let me see.
yours.
Can you hear me better now?
But
okay.
Yes, yes, yeah. I think it's yeah, just the internet itself, and an interesting perspective as well, right, Joe? I mean, how much we as a man are really open and available to the others, in the sense that, look, it's not about just my goals, it's not about only my body, it's not only about what I want to do, it's not only about my career, right? How do we share more? How do we uh, co-create more with our families, with our wives, with our parents, right? It's like, I think there's a natural trend for us sometimes to have a big ego, right? If I might say, as I think part of the social narrative of this idea that the man needs to be the provider. So, okay, you are the provider, you are paying the bills. So, since I'm paying the bills, I'm going to do all the stuff that I want anyway, right? Um, and I can tell you, I mean, I think that's a learning journey for me. I put myself as a beginner, as a learning to that. Sometimes I enter in my automatic pilot of, okay, let's do more, let's produce more, let me do more stuff, let me make more stuff, and sometimes I don't pay attention to others. I mean, in the way I should be paying attention. So I'm curious on how is this journey been to you personally, and even to your
Yeah,
customers.
absolutely. I would say the number one thing is when you are focusing on fully loving yourself as a man, that has a ripple effect in every domain of your life because you're not living in fear all the time. When you're not living in fear all the time, then you could have much better opportunity to be living in a space of love and openness more often. I would say one of the greatest tools that you have when you're not living in fear is, you're able to sit down and listen and pay attention, like you said. And there's some little things that I know I've done over the last couple of years that have greatly improved the relationship with my wife. We do all of our goals together as a family. So we write down our individual goals for the year. And we're working together as a team. The other thing that we do is we talk about the tough stuff once a month and have an open dialogue about, goals, expectations, how we're feeling about everything. And you're going into that conversation knowing what the expectations that it's going to be a little bit tough. So you don't just spring it on your partner like, hey, I want to talk to you about this, and you're like, oh, and then they lash out at you and there's nothing set up. And then the other thing too is we always say thank you to one another for everything. Hey, thank you for doing the dishes. Hey, thank you for taking the trash out. Thank you for picking up those groceries. Hey, I appreciate you picking up Damien today. Everything. Say thank you, because love is a verb, which means it's an action, right? And I know for me, it was uncomfortable doing that stuff at first because my mind was telling me, well, that's what she should be doing anyways. That's really? Really? Like I can't express gratitude for, yeah, like that's her task on the family list and this is mine and we all know our roles and that stuff, but like I it's still not contributing to the family and I shouldn't recognize my gratitude for that. So I had to look at myself and say, wow, man, like, and I had to go through the discomfort of saying it. Now I just do it and it feels great. The other thing I would say as well is that, especially with the kids, is just being where your feet are. Like if I'm with my son, I'm with my son.
Mm.
I'm not working. I'm not thinking I want to be working. I'm with him, you know, and that focused attention is the most powerful thing and most important thing that I can give him, you know. And there's plenty of men that I've coached that like they have this thing where it's like, well, I'm home. I'm like, yeah, but you're playing video games for 4 hours when you get home, bro. I'm like, you're not actually there. Like, just because your body's there doesn't mean you're there. Like, have a game night. Do something with your
Mhm.
kid, man. Like, going home and drinking a six-pack every night just to say I'm home with my kids. I mean, you might as well go do whatever you want because it's the same thing. You're not really there, you know? So I think it's really just challenging ourselves as men to really give that focused attention. And guess what? It's not comfortable because the majority of us get that from our dads. You know, it's just not real. So you have to work out those muscles, right? That mindset to be
Yeah.
able to do that, um, and then lastly, let's see,
Yeah.
someone said something in the chat. So I want to ask his thoughts.
Yeah. We do have a couple of
Yeah,
questions
let's look
here.
at it. Let's see. So
Yeah.
I thought I want to ask his
So
thoughts about,
yeah, Roberto is asking about spirituality. Yeah, man and spirituality, relationships that man can have with spirituality. How's been your experience? What are the assumptions, the narrative that the men have about
yeah, I mean,
spirituality?
that's a really good point, right? Because then you have to think that, I'm not God. You know what I mean? And, I think that's like you said, that whole ego part, right? If there is a God, then somehow I'm less than, right? But that's humility, that's practicing humility. And I think the big thing, I think to directly answer his question, I don't work with people that don't have spirituality in their life. um, because spirituality is a domain of life. That's not religion. I'm not saying religion, but you have mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And I think a lot of the times I've made things very practical when I bring it up to men, because we think about things in terms of fixing things, in terms of solutions, right? Like, okay, here's the problem, here's the solution, go do that. Like we're just very problem driven. We're solvers, right? It's like that whole YouTube video. Have you seen
Mm-hmm.
that where the wife has the nail sticking out of her head and she's talking? You look it up on
No.
YouTube. I'll send it to you. She's sitting there and she's talking about how there's a nail in her head, and like she just wants to talk about how the nail's there and it hurts, and this is how she's feeling about it. And the guy is just like wanting to keep like pulling the nail out to like relieve the pressure. She's like, no, I don't actually like want to pull the nail out. I just, I want to just talk to you about it. He's like, no, pull the nail out. So, as guys, we're very practical. And so this is the approach that I give for men, is that you wouldn't go a day without nourishing your body and replenishing it with food and water, right? You just wouldn't. Most men too, they work out, and you wouldn't go without that either. So I would say that prayer and meditation is the same nourishment that you need for your mental and emotional health, as well as your spiritual health. And it has to be
Mm-hmm.
replenished. It's perishable, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
like your mindset. So again, the other thing I would say too is that there's guys like Dr. Joe Dispenza now that's doing work that he's proving the power of prayer and meditation with science and the effects that it has on changing your brain waves, changing your brain receptors, and creating entire psychic changes for people. So that's only going to help our cause, right? I mean, these are things that the Buddhists have known for thousands of years, and us in Western culture, it needs to be proven
Yeah.
through science in order for me to apply it and do it. Well, there you go. doing that. So now, like, I'm like, oh yeah, you see here, here's the Harvard research showing that if you do this, you get this. So like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I should try that. So a lot of it's that too. They're just practical things,
Yeah. Yeah. So, and one thing that I've seen, I mean, I haven't seen numbers or research about that, but one of my assumptions is that there's many men out there that they are not open to spirituality, in the sense that they confuse spirituality with weakness, or that whole narrative that, look, I am a man. I mean, why do I need God, or why do I need some kind of spirituality? Why do I need to stop to do some kind of meditation? I mean, let me get things done, right? So I think in a way that explains why the consumption, when we think about books or movies and videos and everything related to spirituality, I have seen a higher consumption from women than men, right? I think it's around like 70% as well. But there's another question here, Joe. Do you want to take a look here? And so this is Lydia's question. So she's basically asking that there, nowadays, maybe there were, in the past, in fact, she's saying, in the past, there was advantage and privilege about holding the position of being a powerful man. Society has changed in a way that is not true anymore. So what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, and this happened during World War II, specifically in America. So you had the majority of men off at war. And for the first time in the history of our country, women went to work, right? So women are, at that time, the men are gone. They're working full time, earning a wage. They're running the house, taking care of the kids, right? Managing the whole house, doing everything. All these men come home at the same time. They've just gone through one of the most traumatizing experiences of their entire life, and they'll never be the same. The things we know about PTSD now, they didn't know back then. Your brain flips a switch and it can never go back. You can only manage it. Okay? They come back, and at that time, it was their place to be the provider and the head of the household. Now the women have taken that role. They're doing everything, and they come back, there's not a necessity for the man, right? It demasculated them. It took away their whole purpose at the same time of them being in the most vulnerable place they've ever. Spike, alcoholism, drug addiction, domestic violence in our country, huge spikes, because men didn't know where they fit in anymore. They had no idea, and they weren't equipped. They were not equipped emotionally, psychologically, to know what to do or where to go. So they did like most do and acted like, crazy little children, and threw temper tantrums and beat and drank and this and that. So it's one of those things where now men are really trying to, so we're 2 generations out from that, but we're carrying that generational context of pain with that, and so what happens is, and to directly answer your question, it needs to come more from a space now of team. This is the biggest thing that we're trying to work with men on. And the big thing is that, like, think about how much you can accomplish now and how great of a life you can have with your partner if you're both living your dreams and you both have access to opportunities that weren't ever available before. And those opportunities weren't even available in our mother's generation, Daniel. We're the first generation where it is. That's remarkable. That's change. So it's not our job then to push back on that. It's our job as men to embrace that and evolve. And again, that's not comfortable, you know, but good old Darwin, I mean, that's the reason why we're head at the food chain, right? Survival of the fittest isn't the biggest, baddest, strongest. We're the survival of the fittest because we have the ability to become whatever it is that we want to be, you know? And for me as a man that's totally comfortable in his own skin, if my wife is winning, guess who's winning? This guy. You know? It's the same for you.
Yeah. It's the same for me, absolutely.
So my question is, how do we
I think
get
we
to
are
a place
also
where more men believe that? I think that's the big question that Lydia is probably posing, is then how do we spread that perspective? And it starts with the introspective work of working on yourself and being comfortable enough with yourself to be around a powerful woman.
Yeah. But I think to your point, right? I think that's what, and we are not in their mind, but I think that's what I have seen, at least from my coaches, from the women that are my coaches, that's what they are looking for, right? They are not looking for this old type of man, like the powerful guy that thinks that knows everything. I think they are really looking into the modern man who has the ability to ask for help, who has resilience, but also who says, look, this is a partnership. I'm not more than you, but also I'm not going to be less than you, right? So I think it's very interesting. I think so many times we still live into this society where there's a huge belief, which is either one thing or the other, right? So either the man is the powerful one or the woman is the powerful one. Either the whites are powerful or the black are powerful, right? Either the foreigners are the minority or they are the powerful ones. Why is that? I mean, why we cannot have a society of and, like it's men and women, right? What if we develop everybody? What if we bring up to life the best version of everybody, right? Regardless of historical culture or gender you have, right? So I see we have some other questions
Yeah, what do
here,
you got?
Joe? So we have here, oh yeah, so Roberto is asking. So he says he has two boys, 18 and 16 years old. What one thing we can do to support this new generation of men? Very interesting.
Will you elaborate a little bit on that? What do you mean? Just type in there, Roberto.
Yeah. So, yeah, type in there, Roberto. But I think he's talking a lot about like, what is the new generation of men going to look like, right? Because for us, and I acknowledge a lot about that, like, and I have a fantastic relationship with my dad, with my father, but I had to learn, and I'm still learning all those things, right? Sometimes I think and I look and say, wow, my ego is too big. I'm just doing the things that I want, the things that I like. And sometimes honestly, I say, look, I don't even pay attention to that. So I need to start creating, and I'm starting creating some triggers to me to tell me that, look, hey, you got to do other stuff. You got to pay attention to those around you, to your family, right? But I think a lot of that comes from a place where what I saw, what I learned from my life, I learned the role model of my dad, right? Which was a fantastic human being, but he was really the provider. He was the financial provider. He was the guy who, had to, in his own words, he told me that so many times, like, I go outside and it looks like a jungle where I need to kill a lion every day in order to continue to be alive, right? So that were the things I saw in my house. And I think Roberto's question is also like, those boys are seeing a different kind of dad, right? So how do you think this is going to frame the new generation of men?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I can tell you is that one of the main things that I teach my son is that I teach him that, number one, if we don't need to change the way that we feel, you know, if an emotion surfaces for us, we need to look at it. We need to take a second and just say, okay, well, why am I feeling anxious? Why am I feeling irritated? Why am I feeling angry? And sit in it and see how it shows up and try and understand, okay, why am I feeling this way? You know, and don't change it. It surfaced for some reason. Sometimes we don't know why, right? And then, you know, the other thing that I teach my son is that if tears are available to us, then we shed them, right? Because to think for a second that, you know, men aren't supposed to cry is absolutely insane. It's the physiological release of emotions, and it's a way for us to express our grief, our sadness. I don't know about you, one of the most wonderful feelings in the world to me is tears of joy, where you're just so filled up. You're so filled up with light and joy that you just start crying. I mean, how many videos do we see right now online, TikTok, YouTube, all this stuff, with these young stepfather accepting being adopted as their true son, right? So finalizing the fact that they can say that they're real son. I have yet to see a video where in that moment, that grown ass, hard ass man did burst into tears. Why? Why is that?
Mm-hmm.
Joy, love. That's why. And to think that for some reason, if I'm a man, that I shouldn't be experiencing those things, I'm actually cheating myself out of things that are available to me in the human experience. That's what I'm doing. Egotistical. You know, the other thing that I do with my son is I'm creating him just like my parents did to be independent, right? We don't do everything for him. I don't care how he feels about it. Like, you're going to learn how to do laundry. You're going to learn how to cook. You're going to learn how to take care of things. And I remember I used to just, you know, hate my parents for, you know, because none of my friends had to do all that stuff. And guess what? You know how set up for life I was because of that? I didn't have to rely on someone else. I could live by myself. I know how to cook. I know how to clean. I know how to do laundry. You know, I know how to do everything around the house, you know. And the biggest thing, the last thing I'll say, the most important thing is that, you know, I'm not forcing him to go to college. I'm just not. I'm not forcing him to do anything other than the things that he wants to do, you know. And there's a lot of pressure from parents that they need to do this and they need to do that, and they're going to throw their life away. Ultimately, man, kids are other human beings. They're separate from us, man. It's an illusion of control that we have. It's an illusion of power that we have over them. I learned so much from my son because he's his own spirit. He's his own person. Does he need a lot of guidance and does he need a lot of things from me? Absolutely. I'm responsible for him right now. He's 11. He can't take care of himself, right? So, but I need to do whatever I can to expose him to himself, to become who it is that he's supposed to become, not mini Joe DiRoma. He's supposed to become Damien DiRoma, right? So he's already going to have to go through, I'm very open with him that he's already going to have to do the work of whatever limits I'm already placing on him. Even though I'm a great attentive dad, I'm a human, so I'm going to, by subconsciously, place limits upon him that he's going to have to unravel himself, just like I did with my great parents that I had to unravel, you know, just like you did, Daniel, you know. So I think just allowing them to be themselves is a huge one.
Yeah. And And I think the thing you said about emotions, right? What's the man's relationship with his own emotions? I think that's been a great learning for me. And I position myself as a beginner as well. But since we did our ontology uh, journey right together, one of the things I notice is that, look, I gotta pay attention to my emotions, because my natural instinct that I learned from being a man that was born in Brazil in the 1980s, from being looking at my dad, looking at my all the men around my life, is okay. If you are feeling an emotion that is negative, quote negative, right, like sadness or anxiety and all that, don't look to that. Just keep going. Just keep doing stuff, right? So work more. Are you feeling sad? Work more. It's gonna go away. The sadness is gonna go away. Am I feeling anxious? Okay, let me do something else. Let me go out for a run, or let me go to this place. Let me go to a restaurant. So it's always about like the way I try to manage my uh, bad feelings, right? Or negative feelings, is always putting an activity on top of it to try to solve. And guess what? It didn't solve anything. It didn't solve anything. So the journey really started for me like 2 years ago, when I start to look and say, okay, uh, let me stop and let me pay attention to that. Why is this emotion? What is this emotion trying to tell me, trying to teach me, right? So, and it's been a journey, and I'm still learning. But well, and I'm seeing here, Joe, we have our timing, 1 minute 30 seconds remaining. So I want to open for you to say your final words as well, and also to share with us where everybody here can see you, can talk to you, can interact with
Yeah,
you.
I mean, we're on Instagram, so please go over and and hit me up, send me a DM, follow me, I'll follow you back. And I have all my different links in my bio, so you can check out what the successful male is. You can check out the podcast. You can check out our e-course, the Success Blueprint. All that stuff. The last thought that I would leave with everybody is that um, the most important journey that any of us will ever embark on is the journey from our head to our heart. And as a man, it's the most difficult journey that we have, because we look at going into the heart as some sort of weakness, but in reality, it's the greatest strength that we have. And when I can get in front of a group of people and be totally honest and open with them about how I'm feeling, sad, anxious, afraid, all that stuff, and be standing there with total confidence and feeling nothing but who I am, and not feeling no sort of less than,